An eargasm of learning and a no-fuss show. Welcome to the Creative Talk Podcast, where you can learn straightforward topics about branding, digital entrepreneurship, online business, and many more with your charming host, John Santos, along with inspiring entrepreneurs, creators, and thought leaders worldwide.
Why choose to start a podcast?
Yeah, so usually I sort of cover a few points around why podcasting, but I think most people know that podcasting has been growing really, really consistently in the last 10, 15 years. And the key thing to understand is that not just the number of podcast suppliers, so who are podcasting have grown a lot in the last 2 years. It's been sort of doubled in number of podcasts, but also the number of people that are listening and discovering podcasts for the first time, that has been growing really, really quickly, especially places that are new. So the sort of markets that are sort of growing are outside of the sort of English speaking countries. So in Asia, in India, places where you are seeing lots of growth in podcast listeners. So if that's your target audience, if you want to create a sort of international presence, like podcasting is a perfect place to build your brand. So that's kind of the number side of things. But I think the other sort of reasons why podcasting is really around the nature of audio, right? So podcasting is very authentic. It shows the personality. It demonstrates the real person behind the mic, and we all feel that, right? So that's the big reason why podcasting has been so addictive. It's so authentic. We don't sort of there's no filter, right? Let's just put it that way, right? There's no filter, and so you get the real person, and I think people are looking for that, especially in this day and age. I would say that the next big reason is, from a business and entrepreneur point of view, there's such a thing called a zero moment of truth, and this zero moment of truth is the time it takes for someone to build trust and make an online purchase. So Google did a research just probably more than a decade ago now. It's called a zero moment of truth report, and what they came up with is that it takes 7 hours of content, 11 touch points, and 4 locations before someone makes an online purchase. So it does take a long time for you to build that trust. And the key thing to know is that you got to build your know, like, and trust factor. And they've actually updated this report, and what they've found is that those numbers have gone up significantly. And so it just shows like things have changed dramatically. You can't just have an online profile and sell whatever you're selling, right? So you got to build your community, you got to build your following, you got to build that know, like, and trust factor. So that's the kind of the big reason why we all here, we are sort of building our personal brand, growing our community. So that is usually kind of the big reason. And if you're very new to entrepreneurship, then this might be a surprise to you. But I think most people are aware you gotta build that know, like, and trust factor. I think the sort of final thing I would say is really around being a leading learner. So what we call a leading learner is someone who is teaching not just not just a sort of a teaching teacher where we're teaching things that are outdated, but really leading your niche, but also learning at the same time. And so teaching what's the latest information, the latest trend, the latest discovery around what you've learned working with your clients or working with other experts in your niche. And so that is kind of the big thing with podcasting, is that it allows you to be interviewing other experts in your niche, fellow peers in your space. And you don't need to limit yourself, but like what Gail was saying, you can sort of brand it slightly differently. It's really around your interests, questions that you might your clients or your community might ask. And so you want to be seen as an authority, and so you want to be learning on your behalf, on behalf of your community. And so having a podcast really positions yourself as a leader, and it gives you that platform. And when you have a platform, people say yes to being interviewed. So those are kind of the reasons why you should have a podcast. I think that should summarize some of the big
Wow,
reasons why we're here.
that's a powerful solo content already, man, that we can use.
Well, well, Jan, I, I explain this all the time to a lot of people. So I've got all these points like on top of
Well,
my head.
yeah, that's the beauty of it, right? Because when we're in the introduction portion, there's a lot here with us today that are coaches, leaders, entrepreneurs, and that value that you shared is really an essential part for them if they want to pursue the podcast journey. And I love that. Gail, you were flashing your mic a while ago.
Yes.
Your perspective on why do the jump on podcasting, and you personally, why did you decide to jump in the world of podcasting?
Well, like Woon says, podcasting is an absolutely fantastic way of sharing more of yourself with your audience. And you noticed in the introduction, I said that Woon and I used to present the Entrepreneurs Sushi Club podcast. And that was just really, it was something that the three of us that were involved in it were really passionate about sushi for starters. We were all entrepreneurs, and Lubna, who was kind of like the brainchild of the Entrepreneurs Sushi Club, her and I just thought, well, surely we cannot be the only entrepreneurs who love sushi. So why don't we combine our love for sushi with finding out more about people and their entrepreneurial journey and the impact that they're having in the business world? So that was just sharing more of ourselves. But the other thing I wanted to mention as well, which ties into the same point, was Woon mentioned about being, leading learners or learning leaders even. And that is a really, really key point. It really is about putting yourself in your client's shoes. What do they need to know? Where are they? So, for instance, with my Daringly Awesome podcast, I talk about interviewing comfort zone escapees, because so many of my audience are either wanting to escape or have escaped. So they can add value to each other just by hearing those stories. But also, a lot of the people that I tend to interview, they tend to be people who are coaches, consultants, trainers, but also they're healers as well. Some of them are therapists, because one of the things that often trips us up, especially if you're a coach or you're in the service industry, we have this ridiculous perception that we need to be perfect, and it is ridiculous. And this is why I lay myself bare on my podcast and also encourage my guests to tell their story so that other people can see that you can be really gifted, you can be talented, you can be absolutely amazing at what you do without being perfect. You can still have the work to do. We are all works in progress, and that's why I encourage people to share their stories so that you can see that success is not about being perfect. It's not about perfection. It really is about the progression that we make along our journey. So that's why I chose podcasting, because it helps to amplify both my voice and my purpose, even more so than just being in contact with my clients. And that's me.
Again,
Kaboom!
bam, kaboom, kaboom. Love you, Gail. I mean, again, you're making the editor's job easy. First clip, Woon. Second clip, Gail. Done. Content diversification. My friend Anirudh, you were flashing your mic. Share us your perspective on why you as a brand decided to invest your time and effort and talent in podcasting, because your podcast is really complex. I'm reading the link that you shared, and I'm amazed of the structure. Please share us your perspective, my friend.
Absolutely, absolutely. Gail Boone, it's a ton of value, honestly. So one of the most powerful ways that I realized about gamification when I delved into it after working as a decade as a game designer is that it actually transforms individual goals. I started applying the principles of gamification in my personal life that transform my finances, transform my health, my fitness. My numbers started changing in terms of my health reports, and then I told myself, this is incredible. I should start coaching people how to turn their life goals into a gamified system with simple methods of gamification. So I gamified my podcast. So if you listen to my podcast, each episode is less than 5 minutes, and each episode will actually reward you points. And if you collect certain number of points, you unlock an achievement. So in fact, one of the most powerful reasons I chose podcasting is that a lot of people drive and learn, and that is the most incredibly leveraging thing that you can do while driving. Listen to podcast, and that's what I think a significant amount of audience do not take time out exclusively to listen to the podcast. They usually multitask. So I think while they're driving, they listen to the podcast and they get the best out of it, and I'm one of them. And that's when I realized the power of it, and then I thought, this is incredible. I should start spreading the message of how to gamify your life through a podcast. And I'm also authoring my first book. But first I created the content for podcast, and whatever content that I created for the podcast, all that content is also going into my book.
Wow, amazing, man. I'm in awe, man. I love the structure of your podcast. As far as I'm concerned, you're the first podcaster, creator, host that I met with this type of structure, and I'm blessed. Me and Woon and Pete is blessed because you are here with us to share values after values. Thank you, Anirudh. Bro, we have the legend, the living legend. I know he's busy. He's speaking to a corporate company. I think it's Nestle, but he is here with us. I don't know if he can say hi. Pete Cohen is in the house. Whoop whoop.
Good morning for me. Good afternoon for you guys. Yeah, look, I'm a massive podcaster. I've been in the podcast game longer than probably everybody. I don't know, about 6 years of my podcast, and then prior to that, and I was on something called Blog Talk Radio, which was podcasting from your telephone, which I did for about 3 years as well. I think it's just one of the best forms of content. I just think it's the best way of putting something out there that people could listen to. I've got episodes that we recorded 4 or 5 years ago that people still listen to, but I've worked very closely with both of you, with Jan and Woon. They're both a part of our team. And these guys are two of the best people I know in the business of branding and podcasting. You know what? I now have been recording podcasts. I did one this morning on Clubhouse. And it's like doing it with a live studio audience. When the podcast goes live, we don't tell people who are listening onto the podcast that there's an audience there. But for me, it just is incredible because it just puts me on my A game. If you listen to podcasts I did 3 or 4 years ago and you listen to them now, it's like, Pete, what's going on? It's like, well, there's a live audience with me who are listening in. So I just love it. And I really would encourage people to, if you're going to do it, work with someone who knows what they're doing, because there's lots of nuances. There's lots of different things that you can do that can make a big difference with the branding of your podcast, with the show notes. We have a lot of people commenting on our show notes, saying how good they are, because they're fantastic. But they weren't always that way. But we're always looking to improve. We're always looking to make a difference. And we're 6 years into our podcast. We are past 400 episodes, and you know what? We've only just got started. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to smash it. This is in my club. So hey guys, welcome to my club. You're all in my club. So let's all dance. Let's all give Matt Rowden another rowdy round of applause, because it's 1 year on Clubhouse, and boy, has this social media app changed this man's life like it's changed so many of our lives. So Yeah, I could talk on this for till the cows come home, but I am speaking to Nestle in about an hour. I've just been listening to their talk this morning. So yeah, I'm done. Thank you so much, Jan. You're brilliant, and I love you.
Pete, thank you. And please do connect with Anirudh because his structure of podcasting is connected to gamification. And for everyone, Pete also launched an app. Pete, can you explain, promote it very fast?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Aman, who's in the audience right now, he has a brilliant company that specializes in the building of apps and many other things like websites and stuff. And we've been working very closely with him. We've launched an app. We're taking gamification to the next level. We are helping people identify with the person that they want to be, helping them create relationships with themselves in the future. Then we're helping them identify what they need to start doing, what they need to stop doing. And then they get coins. They get coins for their efforts. We are going to revolutionize the whole space of learning. I know, Anirudh, this is something I've heard him speak on it before. I found listening to him very inspirational because people like to play a game. And let's face it, if you don't play a different game, you'll keep playing the game that you're playing, and then you'll keep getting the same results. Because if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. So Aman, for me, is the man. If you're not following this guy, I would really encourage you to do so. It's been awesome working with him and his team. And we will be doing some rooms on tech and gamification. And Anirudh, if you want to come to that, it will be great to get your take on it as well. So thank you so much, Jan. Back to you.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you, Pete. Always a blessing to have you because I know you're very busy. You are a blessing. Thank you. All right, Woon, let's start talking about some technical questions here. Let's talk about podcasting. Question number 2. What are the ways podcasters can generate income? Boom. Straight to the point. The floor is yours, my friend. Whoop, whoop.
Yeah. So the most common approach as to why you want to create a podcast is it forms part of your marketing, right? So it helps you build the know, like, and trust factor with your audience, specifically with your community. So I would say that for most people, we're using podcasts to grow your sort of core business. But there are a lot of people out there who are sort of pivoting and they're really using the other revenue streams to sort of to cover the cost of your podcast, but also grow that side of the business, the revenue streams around that. So let's just cover a few, right? So the most obvious one is really what you call subscriptions. So people can actually buy your content as a podcast, right? So you can actually create podcast that is paid for. So people pay to support you, and there are many different ways you can do it. Patreon is a very, very popular one. It's very common. There are other platforms out there as well, and they sort of do it slightly differently. Some allow you to charge for certain content. Some allow you to sort of put in early access and things like that. So there are different features and different things that you can, different perks that you can sort of create for your audience and get paid to be a sort of mainstream podcaster, right? So if you want to turn your podcast into a revenue stream, that's a very, very effective way to do that. But also the reason why this is so important is because it's very sustainable. So if you have a community, then you will have a long term growth in your business, and that the difference is that you gotta really like being a podcaster, right? So you gotta enjoy your content. You gotta enjoy interacting with your audience and your community. So that's kind of the subscription model. And then I would say that the next one is really the advertising model. So this is the sponsorship or the advertising model. There are many different types of sponsorship deals that you can strike with potential sponsors, as well as advertisements. So yeah, those are fairly big chunk of the sort of revenue streams for most podcasters. And if you're looking at just monetizing your podcast, just like how you would monetize a YouTube channel, there are platforms out there that allows you to do that almost instantly, without any sort of minimum limit on subscribers. And so that's a fairly common approach to sort of earn money through your podcasting efforts. Now, it doesn't mean that you're going to be rich just doing that, right? So you still need to
Love that
yeah,
you
you still
mentioned
need to
that.
think about other stream of income. But don't quote me on that. Like, you might be the next Joe Rogan, the next whoever it is, right? So obviously there are podcasters that make a ton of money just being a podcaster, and so that's obviously a huge potential revenue stream. I mean, the other thing uh, uh, I would say that this sponsorship model is super um, is super relevant to most people, and I think most people underestimate how effective it is, because what this means is that you can approach corporates, companies, and they don't even need to be big companies. They could be they could be entrepreneurs like us, right? That want to sponsor your podcast, and it can be just one episode, right? Or it can be a season, right? So you can get people to sponsor your podcast and get paid through that, and um, it's actually a lot easier to do that and just get started with that. And yeah, and it's actually very effective because you're creating a lot of awareness for other people, well, mainly your sponsor, and then obviously that can be tracked through your whatever hosting account you're using, and you can get paid through that. And so there are really almost an endless number of ways you can structure that deal with your potential sponsor. So that's kind of the other part to sponsorship. And then I think the other thing which I think most people don't think about is really um, through affiliates. So when you have a podcast, you have links on your sort of show notes. You have links that you can direct people to, and you can actually earn affiliates through recommending your audience different products that you support or are aligned with, and that's actually a huge chunk of income for a lot of the big podcasters that I know of. And yeah, and it's actually easy to set up, because relatively easy to set up, because everything is pretty much built for you. You just got to add that link and mention it in your podcast. So that's kind of a no-brainer, I would say, for a lot of podcasters. And I think those should cover those would keep you occupied long enough for you to be in the podcasting game.
God created you to be in that
Yeah,
position,
those are the main
to
main sort of
really
sources of
change
income.
the world.
Obviously, there are other more sort of nuanced. There's a lot of nuances within that, but those are the main sort of income streams.
Wow, that's another masterclass part ready to be content diversified. Love that. Let me actually, you mentioned a lot of points there that I really agreed, because we used to use that ways to generate income when we were starting our podcast, the Creative Talk podcast. And let me just share 3 points, because I totally agree of what you shared. Ways a podcaster, or your show can really create money. So you mentioned about affiliate marketing, and when we started, I think our first 20 episodes before 2 years back is we started affiliate marketing, and this doesn't mean it's not as complex as we hear it, like what you've said, Woon. It's affiliate marketing is earning a commission by simply recommending other people or a product or a service or even a movement, an organization. In you do that in your show, in your podcast, and with all the technicalities aside, that's the basic thing in affiliate marketing in the context of generating income in podcasting. So it goes out per episode. So that's something that I agreed upon, and we've tried that before. It's something factual, and it's tried and tested that you can generate income, although it's not gonna make you rich like what Woon said, but you can really play with it as you go along in your podcast journey. And number two, that we really used, and this is something with an authentic experience in how to generate income in podcasting, we used to promote our own products. You're selling your own products, especially what you have with your tribe. If if you have a solid supporters already. Now, clearly, this only works if you have a tribe already. It doesn't need to be big, but when you have a tribe, people that supports you, maybe 500 or 400 or 100 or 50 to a million. If you have a solid supporters, people that love you, that really believe in what your message is, then they are the ones that will really support the products that you share. It could be a service like a coaching program. I remember when I was early in the branding industry, I was offering one-to-one coaching. That was like way, way, way before. And the podcast helps me to promote my coaching program. And we also use the podcast episodes to promote online events, basic online events. It's not big. I remember it was like $5 per attendee for that 1 hour online event. And we use our podcast episodes 1 to 30, 20 to 30 as a free advertisements for those projects. It may be a special workshop, seminars, or special events. So promote and sell your own products. And then third is like what the first point of Woon mentioned is, being supported like patrons. And this is more like Patreon situation, but there's a lot of tools that are similar. But based on my experience, we really are connected to Patreon, and per guest or supporters, people are supporting us. May it be they are in Patreon or out of that platform. May it be the guests or, like entrepreneurs or creators that believe in our podcast message. They either support per episode or a monthly deal. It could be a group outside Patreon, like what I've said, or in Patreon, because this is very structured platform. We're not being paid to promote Patreon, but so far, this platform really helps creators in different contexts to get rewards. It's basically collecting money from your audience who are fan of your show, and exchange depending on different levels that they pay. They get access to certain things. I remember before we have like an exclusive for a $5 a month, or you get a one-time payment for $10 and you get extra behind the scenes clip, or a live Q&A, things like that. So those are 3 ways that really can give you some monetary support in your podcasting journey. And that's based on my experience, and it's connected to what Woon shared about how you can generate income. It's not gonna make you rich all at once. And this is just being realistic. You can see a lot of videos on YouTube that podcasting will transform your life and make you successful. Yes, but we're missing a big chunk there in the proper time, in the proper pacing. So Pete here, he's on his 400 episode. It really needs time, dedication, discipline, and things like this. If your aim, and I always share this, if your aim is to generate income in starting a podcast, then you already lost the game. Don't make that as a motivator to your podcast. Your intent should be greater than that. Money, income generating thing, the monetization will come. It will come. Trust me, I've listened to experts like Woon, and they never once drive a client to start a podcast aiming for an income. Yes, it's a business, but it's not how you win the game. You need to have a bigger intent behind the content, behind your podcast. The money will come. There will be guests that are so energized, that are so happy in their experience with your show, and they would just shower you with blessings. They would pay you right away. And that happened to me. That happened to Woon. So that's going to be a possible thing for your podcast also. But focus on the main intent of why you're doing podcasts. But there are ways for you to generate income. So I love what Woon shared. I love the values there. And guys, if you're aiming to run your podcast as a business, yes, in the perfect time, discipline, you can generate income. Anything you want to add, Gail?
No, I'm in total agreement. Total agreement. You say it every week, Jan. Intent before content. You say it all the time. And I think this time is just as pertinent as any other. You know, the content is great, but the intention to just inform and educate and inspire, definitely before anything monetary. So I'm in full agreement with you guys.
Can I just add something
Oh,
there, Jan?
sure.
Yeah, thank you. And Gail, it's lovely to have you in the club. As also seeing Aman on stage and so many beautiful people, I think that there's never been a more important time than for us to focus. So, as Jan always says, content, the intent comes first. What's the intent? But narrow down your focus. Really, what is it that you're offering? As Gail would say, standing in your hallelujah. Rather than, we've heard this so many times, trying to be all things to all people. Your podcast, what does your podcast stand for? Who is it actually for? What exactly are you trying to do? I think if the universe was talking to us right now and giving us a message, for me, the message I get back is focus. Focus like never before. There's so much distraction. There's never been more people out there that are making more noise. There's never been more podcasts, more YouTube channels, all these things. There's all of this content. We have to know what we stand for. And we have to stand for it every single day. Otherwise, you just get drowned out. And I can promise you this is where I'll just land on this. In terms of Jan and Woon and Raj and Gail, and I'm sure many of the other people here, Aman, we all want to be a part of your success. We're selfish. Whether we benefit in a financial way or not, we want to know what you're doing, where you're going. We want to help you. We want to see you succeed, right? And that's what I wanted to say, Jan. We just got to focus. We got to focus. I'm done.
Boom. Love that. Actually, Pete, the third question, I want to give it to you because the question is how to be consistent in podcasting. Given a podcaster like you created 400 episodes and still going, man, what's the secret? How can I be consistent in podcasting?
Well, you know what was really interesting? There was a guy called Mark Ronick who was in the room before, and he said, I was a podcast and contract employee at Blog Talk Radio, and I've been podcasting longer than you. Ha ha, 15 plus years. So there you go. So maybe he would have been the best person to ask. But you just got to make it a priority. And you got to, for me, it's allocating the time to do it. I mean, I'm really lucky now because I will record. I get up every day, which is crazy for some people. I get up at 4 every day. I immerse myself in learning. I spend an hour just learning. Then I spend an hour exercising, meditating. And then 6, I go live on Clubhouse. And then 1 week in a month, I will record 5 podcasts live on Clubhouse. Sometimes I've got guests. I've got Ben Ivy coming to my house on Friday. He's going to be on my podcast. And I've also got the author of the book Indistractable, who I'm interviewing on Thursday. So there's always room. It's a priority, but I block the time. Because otherwise I'd be all over the place. Got to make it a priority, my friend. But maybe Woon has got some words of wisdom because obviously he helps so many other podcasters with their podcast. Woon, I miss you.
He's close to me now, Pete.
Woon's been to my house. He's the only person in this room that I've actually met apart from Matt Rowden. But I'm actually going to be meeting a few people this Sunday in London for the first time. So, Woon, if you were still here, you would be there. But you've decided to go back to Malaysia and leave us. So, there you go.
Woon, what's the secret? I mean, how can we be consistent in podcasting? I remember when we shared that, podcast workshop in the metaverse, you and me, you mentioned, you gave a number, a figure, a stat about podcasters only creating up to what, 6 episodes, and then they disappear, something like that. So what's the secret? What's the special sauce, if you may, in being consistent in podcasting?
I mean, I don't think there's there's a secret. I think you gotta keep yourself motivated. So it comes back to understanding yourself for a start. Right, so there's a lot of self awareness involved, right? So podcasting has always been a journey, and I got into podcasting in 2014, but I never had a consistent podcast, so I'm not a good person to ask to answer this question. But I've definitely helped a lot of podcasters, and a lot of the podcasters, or some of the podcasters are like Pete, right? So been very, very consistent. So the thing that
And
I've
Patty,
noticed is
right?
that,
Patty Dobrowolski.
yeah,
Her podcast, when you guys launch it, it
to
really
really
ranked.
change the
I think in
world,
2 weeks.
to really
Wow.
give
yeah. So
life
the like Patty, she was consistent, and she's very consistent, right? So consistency is a key, and I think you gotta know what drives you. What is the sort of the reason why you're podcasting, and keep that as a core priority. And I think the other thing is, you gotta sort of give yourself a bit of slack. I think Gail mentioned this. Like, you don't need everything to be perfect. You just gotta take action. You just gotta do it, and get it out, right? So it doesn't have to be, super slick, right? Like, I think that's kind of the key thing, is to make sure it's good enough. I think good enough is the key, when especially for most of us, right? As long as it's good enough, I think it's good to go, right? But over time, your standards grow, and so you got to improve, and you got to keep innovating. And I think the other thing that I notice is that people stop podcasting because they get bored. And this is kind of an interesting one, because I think you got to have some level of variety in your podcast journey. You got to sort of try things out, and not everything might work out, but you want to have that variety, because your audience are craving that as well. So you want to sort of diversify your content. You want to go down the route of, maybe creating your own monologues, if you've always been interviewing guests. And if you're only sort of doing monologues, go down the interview route, right? So that's kind of the key thing, is to have diversity in it. So that variety is a core human need, right? So you want to keep it interesting and exciting enough, so that you keep yourself motivated. And there's a big sort of there's always learning, right? So I think we all need to learn to grow, and so that is kind of a key part to how to keep your podcast journey going.
Love
Jen,
that. Love
can
that.
I ask
Yes, Marcella.
something?
Sure, sure,
Yeah,
sure. The
I
floor is
have a
yours.
question. This is amazing discussion, guys. Oh my goodness. I'm looking at all your podcasts, and I have a technical question. We are all hooked on all these social media platforms with the dopamine effect, that you can see immediately how many thousands views and how many people saw your video, or basically they comment. You can get the feedback right away. So how do you see, like you once said, that people sometimes start and they stop because they get bored? Is there any way to see how many people downloaded the podcast, played it, listened to it? Also, can they send you a feedback? Because I can see it when I'm looking at the podcast. I see your recording, I see all the description, but I don't see any interactions from the audience. So is there, at least for you as a creator, some statistics that you can reach out and see? That's my question. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, Marcella, that's a really, really good question. So the big difference between podcasting and a lot of the other medium is that is is a very fragmented market. So it's still, there's no sort of major platform that owns the entire podcasting space. And so what we are seeing is that, Spotify is obviously a big platform for podcasts, but there are Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. I know Apple Podcasts used to be the main platform, but the fact is that it's not as easy to create engagement using podcasting. part of the reason is because when people are consuming podcasts, they are doing other things as well. Usually they are at home, surprisingly, but they tend to be doing chores or cooking or sort of exercising, or I think who was it? I think someone earlier mentioned driving. Yeah, so those are the few things that people are doing when they're listening to a podcast. So in a way, um, you don't want your listener to to stop driving and then commenting on your podcast, but you want them to keep listening.
Yeah,
So
I'm doing the
You just lost a listener if that happens.
I am actually doing the same thing driving, and listening to this. Of course, it's much easier to listen to podcasts than just like watch YouTube. And I see it on my statistics that I shifted from YouTube maybe 5 years ago. I would spend 500 hours a year versus now it's only 100 maybe.
And
So it's
Marcella, there's a lot of, well, depending on the hosting of your podcast, there's a lot of metrics and analytics that comes with it also. So you can check, the shallow part of it are streams, plays, downloads. You can see the pie chart of which platform it's being consumed, either a desktop or a mobile phone or a tablet, things like that. So you can, and the demographics of your listener, and there are a tons of information that would give you which episode are performing well, and based on what metrics are it performing, which part of the country, what age, up to really niche down details about your listeners, about your consumers, like what type of podcasts do your listeners listen to? Things like that. So you can use that in comparison to what content you're creating, things like that. So in terms of metrics and reviews, the hosting provides you tons of it that you can use as a checker as you create content. But it's very different to what we see on social media platform, that you would see automatic views, automatic comments, because like what Woon said, the market that consumes long form podcast content are the ones that are on the go, either jogging, driving, doing other stuff aside from listening. And so that's where it becomes unique. But yes, there are analytics for you to check the growth of what you create in the podcast world.
Excuse me, can I speak
Sure, my
something?
friend, the floor is yours. Please introduce yourself also.
First, I'm from India. I'm Anokha Ankit. I'm a podcaster. I'm a writer and a voiceover artist. And you are talking about the analytics part. So I can say the Anchor is the app, is that you can see your analytics. Basically, I'm doing in Hindi, not in English, and I'm doing political satire on podcast way. My question is that uh, the me bothering is the view, because last episode, last Tuesday I put my episode and only goes one view. So it's hard drumming. I doing research 1 week, writing, editing, and after that you can see only the one view is disheartening. I'm doing 32 episode till now, and last I'm not breaking any kind of thing. Every week I have do one single show. So that is the broking. What do you want to suggest me to? We want to see the stats of the viewpoint, or we can't see that and we still going on, and the view count definitely go sometimes. So what do you want to say to me?
Thank you, Annika, for joining. First, for being here in our session. We would love to have you next week again. Thank you, man. Thank you for that question. Woon, you answered the technical side, and I'm gonna answer the the life and mindset. You know how we do in our in our
sure,
metaverse
sure.
workshop.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I think your question um, is really around how do you get more growth in listeners.
Yeah,
And so I think you gotta promote your podcast. So one of the key things is that just because you have a podcast doesn't mean that your podcast would automatically give you listeners, because ultimately your podcast would still be on a platform. And you mentioned Anchor, right? So your podcast would be on Spotify, and
Yes.
so ultimately you want to promote your podcast on social media. That would then get you more listeners. So I don't know how much you're doing that, but definitely create an Instagram account, or
Yeah.
LinkedIn, or some sort of a, or even TikTok, right? So to promote your podcast, you still want to make use of other social media platforms.
I
And
want to reply this. I want to reply this. I promote my show on Facebook. Facebook, I have page. I my profile. I put on WhatsApp. I have a broadcast list. I put on Telegram. I put on Twitter. But in India, TikTok is not in India. India banned TikTok. So these are the platform I'm using. Not using mail, but these are the major platform I'm using. I'm not using Instagram because I'm a vi person, visual impaired person. So I have a problem to uh, accessible Instagram. So I not use Instagram, but all other platforms I am using that. And after that I got one view, so that is heartbreaking.
yeah, so
Also,
so
yes.
let me quickly suggest a few things, right? So if you're using messenger type platforms, WhatsApp, Telegram, that is perfect, right? But what you want to do is not just sort of send it out to your group. You want to individually invite people to listen and get
Mm,
feedback from your audience. Get personal feedback from them, and try and find out why they think it's a good podcast, and how they can, what sort of
mm.
recommendations they have to improve on it.
Yes, yes. Thank you
Love
very
that.
much. It's
Love
a
that.
very good session. I love your work. What are you doing? It's a superb thing.
Love that, Woon. All right, Anuka. Just a follow up. Woon gave you the technical side. My perspective first. Continue to join clubhouse sessions like this, because that's the intent of why we create rooms like this, to support creators, podcasters like you and me. Share your podcast, and we will listen to it and share it also. So this is a safe spot. This is a family that we're building. All right. And then another perspective that I want to share with you is that's normal. All right? That's
Mm,
normal. Keep creating content. Keep
mm,
creating podcast episodes, even to the point if nobody will love your work.
yes,
Because
yes,
again, intent comes before content. What's your intention?
yes,
Always look back to why you are doing the thing you do. If you're aiming for people to support your podcast, that's not bad, but that should not be the main goal. It should be
yes,
bigger than that, because
yes,
that's normal. You can create 1 to 100 episode without support from people in this generation. And mind you, they are harsh. I've had comments of like, why do you keep on nodding? Why are you speaking English? You're not even a fluent English speaker. And that's how the world is. But you keep doing what you are created to do, because you know the intent behind the content.
yes,
All right.
yes, yes,
Absolutely.
yes.
Jan,
This is a big motivation. Thank you very much.
Jan, can I just add in there for
Sure,
Annika,
sure.
because you're absolutely right. We get so hung up on the metrics sometimes, and they are important. Don't get me wrong, they are important. But remember at the beginning when we were talking about knowing what is the message, what is the outcome, what is the intention for your podcast, that is also just as important. And sometimes you may only get one or two views, but if you're really clear, speaking into what Janice just said, if you're really clear about the outcome and the intent for your podcast, then what you can do is, when you've got a series, for example, together, like say you've got a bundle of 6 episodes, you can put that together in a package and offer that as even additional and bonus content for something else, which may be more revenue producing. But also as well, encourage engagement. Get really creative about how you encourage the engagement. So yes, sending out personalized invitations to listen is one way, but make it fun, interactive, creative. I've been working with a client of mine right now. In fact, we're working on their podcast, which was just launched a couple of weeks ago, and we launched it with podcast bingo. Right, their pod. We named it. Well, I'm not going to tell you what the name of it is yet because they want to reserve their IP. But we named it the name of the podcast bingo. So, for example, if it was mine, it would be Daringly Awesome Bingo. And to in order to win the prizes, obviously you had to listen to the podcast because that's how you tick off the squares, because the clues are in the podcast. That's really encouraged engagement. It's fun, it's interactive, but also at the end of it, the listener actually wins a prize that is relevant to their podcast. And you can make that prize anything you want that's relevant to your business. It could be a free client session, it could be a free workshop, it could be a free product, doesn't matter what it is. But it's about encouraging that engagement and being really creative and fun with it. That's all I wanted
Thank
to
you very
say.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Wow, powerful. Raj, you were blinking a while ago. Anything you want to share about Annika's question?
I was disagreeing with what everybody else was saying, if I'm honest. But I think also it could be that he might need to look at his avatar as well, because if his audiences are interacting, it could be for a particular reason, because his audience might not be as correct as he feels. And what Gail said is pretty much what I was going to say as well. Just trying to be a little bit more creative and perhaps maybe look at doing competitions, because I think that because it's an audio space, right, you do really need to be a bit more creative and see how you could utilize certain platforms. Now, I know not many podcasters are on Pinterest, but Pinterest is another way to monetize and to also help you grow your business as well. So you can probably look at platforms like that. But I understand that. Sorry, I had a phone call come through. I do understand that uh, that Annika's like visually impaired, and I think there is someone that I know who comes to the clubhouse rooms, and his name's Jurgen, and he's similar, and he still uses I believe he uses Instagram still. He is not visually impaired, but he still uses it for his stuff that he's doing. So I could probably get him in touch with Jurgen and probably connect the two so that they can help each other out. But I think that the first thing that he can potentially do is look at his audience to see if his audience is correct, and then probably put his content up. At the same time, I think it's about being consistent as well. I know sometimes that the metrics does matter because it gives you social proof, but it's not be or end all. Thank you, guys.
Love
Yeah.
that. There you go, Anuka. Those are like valuable insights for you, man. Keep it in your heart and in your mind.
Yeah. I want to say something. Two things I want to say, if you allow me.
Sure, sure.
You're saying the audience. The problem is that I'm doing political satire in India. This is a growing mindset of political satire in the Western world. In America, John Oliver is a big political satirist, but India is very few people. Kunal Kamra, Akash Banerjee, they are the and Dhruv Rathi, Veer Das. They are the mighty, huge personality, but very few people in India. So I am doing a very different kind of thing, the political satire. The second I question is that I shifted my minds to two, three ways. I'm doing right in political satire. Should I try entertainment? Should I try sports? Because I think sports is evolving very much in around the world. So much football, so much cricket, and everything is going around the world. Each day is a football. Each day is a cricket. So I think sometimes I confuse. I'm doing right political satire. Maybe I'm going to the jail one day, but I'm not bothered about that thing that I'm doing a critique of the political satire. I'm not bothered about that. But I'm thinking the I'm doing a right way, or I play a safe way, the sports and the entertainment, and this is a very difficult way to political satire. But I never bothered this kind of things, so I'm very thinking about it.
Right. I have a challenge for you, Annika. Before we jump into those, we can have a separate room for that. But my challenge for you is, I know you're visually impaired. I don't know if you
Mhm.
can type a message using the
Yeah, yeah,
back
I
channel
can
in
type. I
Clubhouse.
can.
All right. Okay. So it's either you type or you record an audio, make an audio recording of
Mm.
explaining what your podcast is all about. What's the podcast message, the core it's all about, and then send
Mm.
it to me and Woon here in the back channel. And also
Mm.
send your podcast link so we can check. And then we will check it out. And then next week, if you are
Mm.
available, join us
Mm.
again and we can talk about some, basic tips that we can adjust as you continue your podcast journey. Is that okay?
Yes, 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 yes. Thank you.
All right. Love you, man. For
Thank you.
everyone, if you have question, we can entertain one more before we end today's session. Anyone have a question?
This is Dr. Laura. I do have a
Sure,
question.
Dr. Laura, feel free.
Okay. Check it out. I lost my bio and I love it. Why? Because I get to start over. And I feel like it's so poignant because I feel like I'm in a state of pivot because what was happening was I wasn't having any clients and I felt disgruntled almost in a way, and I felt such a lack of self-worth, like no one wanted what I had to offer. I fired my team because after 4 months nothing was happening, and I think it did serve me well because I feel better. At the same time, I feel disconnected. And my point is, I've been told you got to have a podcast. You gotta have a podcast." I don't know what format. I love offering a platform for others to speak, especially women, because I know what it feels like to feel like a little girl in my bedroom crying, wondering if anyone heard me. And at the same time, I really, really love honoring others' voices on a platform. So my point is, I'm confused because people who say that they love hearing me speak, at the same time, I love hearing others speak. So I don't know. I'm confused and conflicted, the type of platform, and I'm scared about pivoting and changing only to the extent that everything's going to change. And that feels so comfortable. I'll take 10 seconds and I'll finish with this. Yesterday, when I saw that something happened in my bio, I freaked out. And then I went from freak out into a state of gratitude because I felt cleansed and washed from the tabula rasa, a blank slate. I get to start over. I'm blank right now. Please help only to the extent I have everything to gain. I'd love some guidance. This is Delora.
Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Laura. The the core of your question, I think, is rooted in really, the intention, the message of your brand, the main battery, the main force before strategy, the main core, and the perfect person to really, and I'm not putting her on the spot to answer you right away here because this time is not enough, but the perfect person to help you in crafting that solid core for your brand, for your business is Gail. I've seen her work.
Are
She's been
you
a guest
ready
in
to
my
create a
podcast.
fantastic
I
future?
got
Are
to
you
know
ready
her
to go down
before,
a path what you've
really
not
more
taken
than
before?
just
Are
partners,
you prepared
colleagues.
to
We were
boldly
we were
go where no
really
man has gone before?
establishing
A great
something. I've
life. It
seen
doesn't
her
happen by
work,
chance, it
and I
happens by
highly
design.
recommend her to connect with you. And you know her, crafting your brand before anything else, that core. Because even though you have a powerful team, a powerful strategy, if you have a weak foundation, that heart, that soul, this is what will happen. You will lose track and everything will crumble. And this person, Gail, is just blessed with that wisdom that she can really craft something for you to use a foundation as you move forward. So I highly suggest that you message Gail either here in the back message or in Instagram, and I'm sure she can help you. It's not gonna be easy, but it's gonna be a heck of a journey, step by step, with Gail.
Thank you so much, Jan. And Dr. Laura and I have actually spoken before. So yeah, I'm here. As I said to you before, Laura, I'm here. You know, I'm happy to support you. If you're ready to move forward, let's do that. But Jan is absolutely right. I cannot stress enough the importance of solid messaging. It is probably one of the most overlooked things in an entrepreneur's brand and their branding. By the way, brand and branding are not the same thing. But when people are starting, because Jan, it's a bit of an in brand joke, branding in joke. But no, but it's true, they are not the same thing. And so many people think that they have all the whizzy dizzy bits and pieces in place. They've got the great team, but that fundamental, it's a bit like polishing the windows when you have no foundations of your house. You've got to get the foundations in place, and it's the difference that makes all the difference. So I've said to you before, when you're ready, I'm ready. You know, I show up 100 the moment you show up 100. So you let me know, okay?
Amazing. This is what the room is all about. This clubhouse session is all about. Really connecting, supporting, and sharing values, and really building a strong, a solid family. Thank you everyone for joining us. Woon, any promotions that you want to say before we end this amazing session once again?
Yeah, no, I just want to say thanks, Dr. Laura, for sharing that again. I think I know you've been into in our room, and you have shared your journey. But I think that's kind of the cool thing with this community, this clubhouse room, is that we sort of we come here every week and we talk about podcasting, but really it's also your personal journey as you transform as a podcaster. And I think we've had that conversation as well. And I think you got to remember who you are, and there is things that sort of we are all afraid of, but I think there's always support. you know I know, from having met you and spoke with you, I know your personality type, and I use different tools to help people to sort of get that self awareness. I think podcasting is a perfect way for your personal journey, and as a way to pivot. I personally sort of moved from corporate to my entrepreneurial journey because of podcast, and so it's a yeah. I definitely recommend starting a podcast, even if you are not yet ready. Like just got to jump into taking action, have that one to one with Gail again, right, and just get started. So yeah, just let me finish by sort of mentioning my webinars
I
as
love
well.
the segue.
It's yeah, and actually before I mention my webinars, I did invite Jay, who's in the audience. Jay, do you want to share your podcast, because I know I work with Jay one to one on his podcast, and I just want to give him the chance to sort of share his podcast as well.
Absolutely. Hopefully you can hear me well. Hi, Jan, Juan, Woon, Raj, Gail, Pete, my man. My name is Jay Chase. I am the host and creator of Don't Touch My Mindset. Um, Check it out. It is the most uplifting, inspiring, and motivating podcast out there. But most importantly, we share tools on navigating the human experience and real experiences with real people. So yeah, check it out. Apple, Google, Spotify, all the good places. So
Yeah,
thank you.
and Jay, when am I going to be a guest on your podcast? I'm kind of getting a little bit like I'm insecure about the fact that you haven't asked me to be a guest yet. What's going on?
Pete.
My mindset. Guys, if you don't know Jay is a classic example of how people like Woon, Jan, and myself have got behind Jay, because Jay's message is bigger than all of us in terms of what he's trying to do. And this is one of the great things about Clubhouse. And as you were just saying before, Jan and Woon, about this room, what it represents is like, let's help each other, support each other in getting the audio out there, our message. out there into the world. And I know Woon was just about to talk about his podcast, his webinar, his workshop. Guys, don't miss out on that. Go and learn from someone who's dedicated years. I mean, Woon is very humble. He's not just run a podcast agency. He's actually a very proficient marketer as well. He understands human behavior. This guy is someone who is the real deal. And I would encourage all of you just to go and check out and see what he's doing, because even if you take one thing away from what Woon is sharing with you, it can make a big difference. So I just wanted to share that, because I started the Woon Tang fan club, and I am actually member 001. So there you go. And that picture that you see of him with the orange background, that's my microphone, I think, and it's taken and the exact spot that I'm standing on right now. In fact, I think Louis took the picture, didn't you? To say yes?
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. You see, we're all in the same team. Team Woon!
Love you, Louis. Woohoo! Nice. Woon, please feel free to promote the webinars and workshops that you have in your website.
Hey, I just want to say, Laura, I don't know whether you wanted to say anything, because I'm just seeing your message, but I don't think you were muted. So
Yes, I was. That's fine. I forgot my question. It's not the point. Thanks so much.
cool. I don't think any one of us muted you, so
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know what happened there, but yes. So yeah, so I run a regular webinars. That's kind of the short of it. And yeah, so if you are interested to look into podcasting, to launch your podcast or take your podcasting to the next level, I run a regular webinar. It's free of charge. And yeah, you can just sign up on that link. There are a few sessions lined up, and yeah, so it's live, so you can ask me questions as we do that webinar. So yeah, that's kind of the short promo.
Wow, thank you, Woon. It's always a blessing to have you on the show. And yes, Laura, feel free to. Oh, she's gone. Well, she can always message us, or continue to connect with us. But thank you, Woon, for sharing great value, great insights in podcasting and beyond. Raj, thank you. Gail, Pete, Matt, Darren, Marcella. Oh yes, Marcella, please. You have something to promote for tomorrow, guys. We have a clubhouse session tomorrow with Marcella under the TikTok Club. Marcella, please promote that session tomorrow.
Actually, before you promote that, I'm going to promote her. So, guys, anything that if you're interested in TikTok, Marcella is the person to follow, right? We've been following her advice. There are some challenges with TikTok in the UK, but we have a video on TikTok right now that has gone 89,000 views. And quite simply, that's because we've plugged into Marcella, her leadership in this area. So, honestly, it is a platform that is here to stay. There's lots of opportunity, and Marcella is the one I would encourage you to follow, along with Jan. I think that room is tomorrow. At what time is it, Marcella?
Oh, thank you so much, Pete and Jan. Yes, it's tomorrow at 11 Central Eastern European Time, which is 10 a.m. in UK. Anybody from UK and 10 a.m. The rest of the world have to look at the time zone. But for me, it's 11 Prague time. Yes, thank you so much for mentioning that, Pete. I didn't even notice that it already reached out 80,000 views. That's excellent. Yeah, in some countries, most of the videos can be just like this, but yeah, UK is having some challenges because of the restriction they put on the teenagers, and that's pretty much the dynamic audience, which is mine in the Czech Republic. And tomorrow we have a room on. I love that you were talking about mastering the message with Gail. Be happy if she comes in too. I invited special guest Ify Thomas. She's specializing in mastering the message and being in front of camera. So she's gonna give us some tips and guidance how to overcome, the shyness, or how to master the message, because that has been always my challenge, given the fact that English is my second language. Also, how to say it, what story is the most I don't want to say emotional, but will trigger the emotions that people want to hear it. And that's actually the whole science behind TikTok videos too. The more you trigger the emotions, the more comments you get, the more views you get, and the story goes on. So thank you so much. I'm inviting you all. We are hosting it with Jen, and Ify will be the guest, and you are all guests. Raj like to come in too. So I'll be happy to see you there tomorrow. Thank you for the opportunity to share that.
Thank you, Marcella. It's a blessing to share the session with you because you are amazing. Anybody that wants to promote anything? Raj, Gail, Pete, Matt, Darren, Michelle, Jay?
I
What
just
do
want
you
to
want to promote, Jan?
go on.
I'm all good. um, guys, our latest podcast episode number 68 is the link is above, featuring Lindsay Zane, talking about which social platform is best for your business or your brand. Feel free to check it out, listen, and get values from Lindsay because she is just an amazing human being, expert in her field. I'm sure you will find values in her stories as you push forward in your brand and business. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Jan, may I? Michelle Jane.
Sure, sure, my friend.
Thank you so much. Tonight at 7 p.m. GMT, I have my sibling grief room, and tonight we are talking about emotional exhaustion and the effects on the body. So thank you, Jan.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Raj, you were flashing?
Yes, Jan, thank you so much. I just wanted to basically make people aware of the space that I'm involved in. It's called Mendable, which is a mental health space for men and women. I think yesterday we celebrated 1 year on Clubhouse, and we've built a community of 17.5k followers, or should I say members, in our club. And it's growing every day, and there are more new people coming into the room. So if that is something that you're interested in, do check out my bio. I think it's scheduled at the bottom in my feed, or you could just go through the club and just join the club itself, or you could just basically follow me and put your bell on, and then when I'm in the room, you will get a ping. It's a really good space, and there's a lot of mad stuff that's happening with Mendables. What they're launching an app this year, and they are doing some amazing things. So there are some awesome things coming from the Mendable space. So please do keep a look at. And Clubhouse, I think, he's taking note as well. So they are going to be pushing our page a little bit and going to be pushing our profile as well. So do keep a lookout. And if anyone's interested, it's 8 p.m. UK time, BST, on Mondays and Thursdays. Thank you so much, Dan.
Thank you, Raj. Darren, you were flashing a while ago. Any you want to promote anything, my brother?
Yeah, just if you're interested in NLP stuff, this Sunday I'm going to be doing at 2 p.m. I'm going to be doing a live chat about NLP, introducing people to the subject and giving people an opportunity to do that. So that's all I do here on Clubhouse. Just talk about NLP every day, like a true NLP geek. Just want to throw that out there, and I just want to say thank you as well, Jan, for hosting this space, and Pete for being the man behind the men and behind the girls. This has been a really great space for just being in the energy of this thing. So thanks for that. Seriously.
Love that. Love that. Thank you, everyone. Jay, promote anything, the podcast or anything you want to
Yeah,
share?
I just wanted to invite anybody who's ready and willing. I'm incorporating a series into my podcast called Pivotal Moments. And anybody who's ready and willing to talk about that pivotal moment in their life where they had to take a mindset shift, where they had to take control of their life, where they decided to pivot in their life. I'm looking for guests who are ready and willing to talk about that moment. So, Pete, when you are ready and willing, let's go.
Yeah, nice, Jay. Guys, thank you everyone for joining us in today's session. For everyone that is raising their hands, I'm sorry we cannot bring you to the stage, but I can see you guys next session. Feel free to join us in the stage. I can see you, Drew. I'm sorry, we're ending the session, but I'm hoping that you will join us next week in another session. Oscar, James, Ashley, Joe, Lori, Betty, we see you. Thank you for joining. For everyone, Estelle, Marzia, Erica, Mark, Dr. Marina, Aro, Sophia, my dear. Thank you, David. Thank you for joining us for today's session. And again, the ones that we have on the stage, Jay, Michelle, Marcella, Darren, Matt, the legend, Pete Cohen, Raj, and my buddy, my partner in Let's Talk About Podcasting, Woon Tan. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your insights, spending the time investing in building this safe spot, this safe zone, this family for everyone. Guys, always remember, have a positive outlook in life. Smile. God bless you all. See you next week. Let's talk about podcasting. Connect and share your podcast. Love you all. God bless. Woo, woo.
Thank you for being with us here on the Creative Talk Podcast. I'm your host, John Santos. Don't forget to listen and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. See you again, always.